Wait, an interview with who? Manny? The Manny? This is going to be a good one. Hello everyone! AJ Jensen here, and welcome to the very first video of a new series known as
Exaggerated Features.
God?
Yes.
Oh, hey man, you heard correctly. Exaggerated Features. This is a new YouTube series based solely around a great art form known as caricature. And the International Society of Caricature Artists, short ISCA, is actually hosting this video series. And I am so super stoked for this video series. Because one, we'll be creating content based around my favorite art form, caricature. And two, this video series will be loaded packed with information involving caricature. And what that means is you get to learn so many different ways on how to draw caricatures. Plus, you get to get an inside perspective by some of the most talented caricature artists from all over the world. We'll be hosting interviews, how-tos, tips and tricks, tutorials, giveaways, and plenty of more. So you should totally be amped up for this like I am. Really amped up. I'm excited. Really excited. And number 3, why the video series is going to be great. We got cereal? I got cereal down to my belly. So for the first ever Exaggerated Features video, I will be interviewing the talent of the talent, the best of the best, caricature artist Manny Avetisyan. He's actually one of the best in the business and has inspired tons of people towards a silly and exaggerated style of caricature. So during the interview, you're not only going to learn different ways on how to approach caricature through Manny's eyes, but you also get the opportunity to watch a video of Manny drawing a live caricature. So let's pop on over to the interview and ask Mr. Manny some questions. Hey buddy, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this, so let's go ahead and start on the first question. Can you remember the exact moment you fell in love with caricature?
Absolutely, I can remember. I've always been just enamored and excited about caricature as far as I can remember. I remember I grew up in Los Angeles, so we would go to Universal City Walk and just to hang out with friends or whatnot. And they had a really awesome caricature stand there where they were doing airbrush. And I remember every single time I would just tell my friends to move on, and I would stand there and try to watch them for as long as I could. And that was at every caricature stand at any theme park I ever went to just growing up. I'd love to stand and watch. And it was never something that I thought I would get into until I went to the Los Angeles Zoo one day to draw the animals, and they started doing caricatures there, and I was offered a job there.
As you progressed as an artist, when did you decide to take a more zany, exaggerated approach to caricature?
Well, I think a lot of people have heard this story, but after the LA Zoo, I didn't do live retail caricature for a good 10 years. And in 2012, Jason Riggs got in touch with me on Facebook and asked if I would be interested in him flying me out to a fair. I said, sure. He did that. Nervously, I went to a fair in Virginia. But my head wasn't in any kind of like, okay, I'm going to do this seriously. It was just, let me have some fun, travel a little bit, make some side cash. And it wasn't until my third show in West Palm Beach, Florida, where I got to work with Paul Levinizet. I got to work with Vincent Rensel, who were doing more of the very push stuff. Paul was pushing the craziest exaggeration I've ever seen in my life. And Vincent was doing just the most brilliant color work, light, shadow coloring work I'd ever seen. And that really blew me away.
So you would say that your ideas are influenced and not just concluded by some spontaneous idea on which a lot of non-artists believe?
There's no such thing as a spontaneous idea unless you're like a fifth dimensional being just capable of spontaneous, brilliant thought. I feel like as human beings, especially as artists, we are regurgitators. Our eyes, our ears take in information, they go through our creative filter, and then they come out with our own voice. Like, you need the fuel for the fire, and the fuel is the world around you, including art, but including nature, including movies, including music. You need that fuel in order to be able to create something.
Now, speaking of influences, I know a lot of people really admire your design aspect when it comes to caricature. It's very out there and hyper, yet it's settled with some fun symmetry, and each line seems to feel balanced. How do you go about doing that with caricature?
Oh man, I didn't even know. I didn't even know my work was analyzed in that way. I really appreciate that. I think the interview's over. That's all I have to hear, AJ. Thanks. I can go now and spend the rest of my day in Glee. Wow, that does say a lot. Well, I do have a design background. I did web marketing design and graphic design for about 10 years. That was what I was doing in that big gap between my live caricature work. So I did develop an eye for design, layout, symmetry. I'm a big fan of good layout. Like one of my favorite artists of all time is Frank Frazetta, and he always managed to just get a flawless, beautifully laid out painting to where your eyes go to all the right places. And that whole golden triangle and Fibonacci and all that stuff, I think, is important to just kind of keep in your back pocket whenever you're doing any kind of artwork. Like, where do I want the viewer's eye to go? I feel like as artists, we're not just artists, but we're visual communicators. And if I want to take somebody's eyes on a journey, I implement that into the drawing. I say, okay, if the eyes are starting here in the upper right with one of the subject's eyes, how can I lead the viewer's eyes from subject one down his face to subject two, through the entire face of subject two, and then back to subject one? I really do think about those things, and that's achieved just through the lines that you use. You're literally just guiding people's eyes like a road.
In your personal opinion, what are you concentrating more on? Likeness or exaggeration?
I believe that likeness is the core of what we do as caricature artists. It doesn't matter what you draw, how cool it is. If you haven't managed to retain a likeness in your drawing, all you have is a cool drawing. You don't have a caricature. But part of the whole definition of caricature is the subject. So when I look at a face, my first question is, what will get an immediate recognition? It could be a facial feature, anything from as simple as thick eyebrows, big nose, small eyes, big bags under the eyes, big lips, small lips, etc. Two, what I feel is a little more advanced is how the different shapes of the face relate to one another. And you're looking at the entire face as design elements in relation to each other. And a lot of times you can get away with very crazy exaggeration, but somehow when you nail the relationship between the different forms of the face, people get an instant recognition of the face. That takes a lot more trial and error, but eventually it will click. And you'll go from like, okay, I got a likeness because I did this guy's nose big and he has a big nose, to, hey, I got a likeness because I really pushed all the elements of the face, but they match the facial features in relation to one another, and now I got a likeness that way.
So now let's dive into learning what tools you use for doing live caricatures. Let's start out by asking, what are you using to color your caricatures?
Great question. This is when I advocate some of the lovely tools I use. Now, Color Artstix is the golden standard. However, in my explorations, I love to see what else is out there, because what if you're limiting yourself by just using this one medium? So Tim Reed, he turned me on to Crayola color sticks. Now they're about twice as hard as the Prismacolor, so they're very difficult on the fingers, but they offer a line of colors that you can't find in a Prismacolor. They offer this like light mocha, great flesh tones to use. They offer this burgundy that's great for darker lips. So I have a few Crayola color sticks. You can get it on Amazon for like 12 bucks for 24. You want to get the 24 pack. That's the only one that has the colors I'm referring to. And most recently, I've included Neocolor into my palette. Now, Neocolor by Caran. Neocolor ones are amazing. They offer a large array of colors. You can get in individual sticks at many large art shops. They're amazing. They're like 3 times softer than the Prismacolor. So on the days where your Prismacolor just doesn't want to color because it's too cold, these Neocolors glide onto paper like nothing. I will say, when you first get them, you take them out of the paper wrapper and they're extremely slick. You want to take off that first layer by rubbing the whole art stick onto a sheet of paper or with a towel, because that initial slickness is kind of a turnoff. It makes you feel like you can't really grip the sticks. Get rid of that first layer. You'll love it. They have a few downsides. On very warm days, they melt like crayons in the sun. Don't leave them out in the sun. It ruins them forever. So look into the Caran Neocolor ones. You'll thank me. You can almost use them exclusively as opposed to the Prismacolor. If your wrists are hurting, if your fingers are hurting, they go on a lot easier.
Now, are these wax-based?
They are wax-based, so they blend perfectly with the Prismacolors. They are very much wax-based. Now, I will say this. A lot also depends on the paper you use. The the standard that I've seen a lot of caricature companies go with is like the accent opaque, digital smooth. Now, it's got a little bit of tooth to it, but that might not be your favorite paper. Now, you won't know until you try other paper. There's other ones like Cougar paper, which I feel is extremely slick. But what my favorite paper so far is the Mohawk color copy.
So since we ran over what you're using to color your drawings, what do you use?
You haven't gotten all the color stuff, AJ. I have to tell you about this crazy new technique I'm trying out.
Okay. What's your new crazy technique that you're trying out?
Well, I wouldn't call it new, but for the last couple of years, I've been doing all my coloring, tearing the sheet off and rotating the drawing as I'm coloring. Now, if you color on the board, you're limiting yourself to the movement of your wrist. You can only turn your hand so many directions. And what artist doesn't love when you get like a new art stick and you're hitting those edges with that sharp edge of that art stick? Well, the cool thing is, if you tear the sheet off and rotate your drawing as you're coloring, you're always hitting it with that sharp edge of your color stick. It feels great. You can control it a lot better. Try this out. You might like it.
What sort of markers are you using for live caricatures?
I use the chart pack, but I use a rebranded version called Quick Draw Caricature Marker. It's the same as a chart pack, but rebranded. It's red. And what I really like about those markers is as you're using it, the red on the wrapper of the marker starts fading away and turns white. So in a strange way, you can gauge how old the marker is just by that. It's kind of cool.
I didn't even know that. I use those too, but I never knew that they fade away. Maybe because I don't use them long enough.
Right. Yeah, they fade away and I look at it and I see that it's turned white. The paper's turned white. I'm like, okay, this is an old one. Grab a fresh one.
Would you say speed helps you become more creative?
Absolutely. Yeah, interesting. Strangely enough, speed has helped me draw more spontaneously, take more risks and just go with them as opposed to telling myself, hey, you got half an hour, figure it out. And if I give myself 3 to 5 minutes to do all the line work, then I also have to be quick on my feet, spontaneous with it. And I think that leads to a little more creativity. It allows room for these happy accidents. It allows room for problem solving, because sometimes you do get in a pinch where you make a line where you didn't necessarily like, but you have to creatively now make it work.
Speaking about being quick on your feet and being spontaneous, one thing I really admire about you is that you're always taking adventures for yourself. And not just artistically, you travel a lot, and I feel like you're always on the move to find something new. Have you always been like that?
Wow, great question. Well, I feel like I've lived quite a few lifetimes. I had the quote-unquote normal life. I had the office job career for 10 years. I had the nice apartment, the nice cars, just that very stable life. And I've also had the opportunity to hit the road and be in constant state of unpredictability. And I've learned that you can figure it out as you go. You don't have to be prepared for everything. And one thing I started doing initially during the transition in my life, where I would transition from that safe, stationary life to the crazy, traveling, unpredictable one, was I took up cliff jumping. Now, I'm not saying everybody has to go and start jumping off cliffs, but
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are. Go do it,
go
guys.
go jump off a cliff.
Go do it.
And I don't mean jumping off cliffs onto gravel or anything like that. Around Los Angeles, I would find swimming holes where there was 10, 20, 30, 40-foot jumps off cliffs into water. And I was really excited by it, watching a bunch of YouTube videos of people doing these crazy flips and spins and jumps into water. I thought it's something I could do, but mainly I did it because it taught me to let go. Once your feet leave the ground, there's no turning back. So then you have two choices. Do I enjoy this? And how do I land? So I think it taught me a lot about taking risks, trusting myself, trusting the universe, trusting friends, trusting that I'll be okay.
What's something that you absolutely love about being an artist?
I love being able to encourage and inspire other people like I've been inspired. So that's what gave me the idea for this book I'm working on. Can we talk about the book?
Yeah, we can talk about the book. Let's talk about the book.
All right, so the book title, which will likely be the final title, is Likeness is Just the Beginning, a comprehensive guide to modern live caricature. And the idea stemmed from that caricature isn't just about likeness. That's just the beginning. Look at how much farther you can take it. And I'm hoping that that's what the book will inspire.
When did you start working on the book?
Well, I conceived the idea about 2 years ago with just this title. I thought, hey, that would be really cool. You know, likeness is just the beginning. That sentence came to my mind. And I thought, how cool would it be to create a book that showcases just how diverse caricature has become? Because I feel it's worthy of documenting and putting that out there, because there isn't really this like standard guide or something that brings together this idea that caricature isn't just your park sketch. It isn't just your cute, cartoony, Disney style version of yourself. Look at what all the possibilities of caricature, and yes, they are still all caricature. So last year I contacted about 30 artists that I really would have loved to be in a book for the reason of their styles were represented to me the full spectrum of diversity within the world of caricature today.
So you wanted more artists on the project because you think that everybody has a different idea and approach to caricature, and you kind of wanted to expound on that.
Yes, if you took all the modern caricature artists, you can categorize them in certain respects. There's the super cartoony, there's the very minimalistic, there's the very exaggerated, there's abstract. There's so many different ways to approach it. And I contacted all the artists that I thought would represent the full spectrum. And this year, I went ahead and launched a Kickstarter, which was a success. We raised the full funds we were going for the book within 5 days. Part of the project, which I felt was very important, was that the book would also raise funds for Glenn Ferguson, which I'm very thrilled. He's a close friend and love him to death.
Yeah, Glenn's a great guy.
Oh man, and what he's done for the community and how he's inspired countless artists, you know, and continues to, is an inspiration. So I wanted to make sure that this book also celebrates Glenn and his contribution to the caricature community as well. And ultimately, this book is a celebration of just how diverse and awesome caricature art has become. And on top of that, it will include some instruction, step-by-step breakdowns by all of the artists involved. It's going to be a complete guide to modern life caricature. I'm really excited about it.
And I'm super excited as well. It's going to be a very great lesson about caricature and show a lot of people what caricature has become.
It's going to be a great,
Well, I bet you're excited. I'm excited
I am
because
very
you're on
excited.
board, and you're one of my favorite artists, and I'm really excited to have you, AJ. Your view and your voice, again, I feel is a product of what modern caricature art has become, and I'm excited to have your voice included in the book as well.
Aw, do you want to make out?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Well, buddy, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. What's a good way for people to follow your artwork?
You can check me out on my Instagram. I try to post there daily. Same on Facebook. If you don't have an Instagram, if you just type in Aveti Arts, Avetiarts, you'll come to my Facebook fan page where I try to also post on a regular basis. YouTube, I have a YouTube channel with a few videos. Same if you type in Aveti Arts, Avetiarts, you'll come across some videos. And this year and next year, I'm going to be working on adding more videos and tutorials on that. So subscribe to that if you want to check it out. And also follow me on Instagram and Facebook for a regular daily dose of art and inspiration. Here we go. What?
That is awesome.
You guys make some crazy tunes.